Most people never find out how close they came. They go to bed. They lock the door out of habit. They sleep through it. These 10 found out. Every one of them was closer than they knew. And most of them still don't know how close. Keep the lights on for this one. I was 10 years old when it started, and my parents didn't believe a word of it for over a month. Our house sat back in the woods. Trees on 3 sides, a forest between us and the nearest neighbor. My bedroom was in the back corner, so 2 of my walls were windows and both of them looked out into the dark. It started with my nightlight. It had a color wheel and I always left it on red. Every single night, red. Then one night I woke up for no reason at all and it was a different color. I mentioned it. My parents said the thing was glitchy. A week later I woke up and it wasn't glitchy, it was unplugged sitting on the floor. And a few days after that it wasn't in my room at all. It was just gone. That one caused a fight. I accused them of taking it. They accused me of losing it. Neither of us budged. And I remember lying there afterward feeling like the only person in the house who knew something was wrong. Then I started waking up. 3 nights in a row, no reason, just awake. My parents said it was puberty. The 4th night I stayed awake instead of rolling over, and I heard it rustling. From inside my closet, my dad checked. Old toys, old posters, nothing. 4 more nights of it. 4 nights of lying in the dark, listening to something move around in there, begging them to believe me. On the last night, my dad got angry. He dragged me to the closet to prove it, started hauling toys out, throwing things across the room, telling me the whole time that I was making it up. Then he pulled a poster off the wall. There was a hole behind it, not a crack. A hole, big enough that my dad's flashlight didn't find the end of it. My mom started screaming. He went outside and found a small dip in the dirt at the base of the house. He dug at it. It wasn't a dip. It was an opening. There was a passage running from the woods under our house into the wall of my bedroom. We left that night. We moved not long after, and my parents have never talked about it since, I think because they know what they did. For over a month, they told a 10-year-old he was imagining things. For over a month, someone had been coming out of the woods and standing in my room while I slept. I still don't know what he wanted. I just know he was there every night I said he was. I'm not somebody who gets sleep paralysis or night terrors. I've always been dead to the world once I'm out. That's why what happened shook me the way it did. I lived with a roommate, I'll call her Trish. Opposite schedules, so we barely crossed paths on weekdays. It was July, hot enough that I ran the window AC on full blast every night. The white noise helped me sleep. The first nightmare came a few days after a breakup. I don't remember most of it, but I remember the thing standing across a dinner table from me. Horns, claws, the kind of shape your brain builds when it wants to scare you. Then it was next to me looking down. Then I woke up in a pitch-black room with the fan roaring, heart going, thinking that was a nasty one. The next night I woke up and my bedroom door was open. I always sleep with it shut. I figured Trish had checked on me, but when I texted her the next day, she said she hadn't been anywhere near my room. The night after that, the thing came back. Same creature, except this time we were alone in a dark, empty room and it kept getting closer, and I never once saw it move its legs. It just kept arriving, until it was on top of me, and I couldn't move. It put a claw into my thigh, and I felt it. I don't remember the rest of the dream. I remember waking up and the room was dark, and the AC was going and there was a stinging on my upper thigh. I touched it. There was something there. I got to the bathroom, looked in the mirror and screamed. There was a gash in my leg. I woke Trish up. She asked how I did it, and I told her I didn't know. We went back to my room and tore the bed apart. Sheets, covers, looking for a bug, a spider, anything sharp I could have rolled onto. It made no sense and we knew it made no sense, but we were looking anyway. Then Trish stopped, put her finger to her lips and turned off the AC. For the first time in days, the room went completely quiet, and we both heard it. From under my bed. Not a bang, not a scrape. Just the sound of another person being in the room. Breathing, existing. I'm still amazed neither of us screamed. We just looked at the bed, then at each other, and walked out of the room, out of the apartment, and we banged on a neighbor's door until he let us use his phone. While we waited for the police, we heard a door slam outside. By the time they arrived, whoever it was had gone. Here's what I can't get out of my head. We left every light on when we ran, so he knew that we knew. And that thing in my dreams, the one that kept getting closer without ever taking a step, that was him. He'd been in my room the whole time. My brain just couldn't find another shape to put him in. He'd been sleeping under my bed. He'd been walking my apartment at night. And one night he reached out and put a mark on me, just to see if I'd wake up. I was 17. My dad and little brother were away at a scout camp for the weekend, so it was just me and my mom, and she'd gone to bed hours ago. It was around 2 in the morning. I was finishing up a late gaming session and went to use the bathroom before crashing. I'm sitting there on my phone when I hear it. The faintest tap on the bathroom door. Mom? Nothing. Mom, was that you? Nothing. There was no wind. No open window. Nothing that explains a tap on a door at 2 in the morning. So I opened it. Slow. And there was no one in the hall. But my bedroom door was shut, and I hadn't shut it. I went and woke my mom and told her I thought someone was in my room. She barely opened her eyes, told me she didn't know what to tell me, so I stood there in the hallway trying to talk myself into it. Maybe I did close it. Maybe I just don't remember. And I opened my bedroom door and looked in. There was a hand sticking out from behind my dresser, just a hand. Fingers. Resting against the side of it, in the corner of my room, where someone was crouched in the dark waiting for me to come to bed. I got to my mom's room and locked the door. When I finally got the words out, she believed me. She went straight for the phone. I put my ear against the door, and I heard him come out. Footsteps, out of my room, down the hall, getting closer, until they stopped right outside my mother's bedroom door. I could see the shadow of his shoes in the gap underneath. The handle turned, the lock held. That was it. That's all it took. He gave up, went down the stairs and out the front door. I got to a window to see which way he ran. He was already gone. I think about that lock a lot, because he'd been in my room waiting for I don't know how long. And the only reason I'm here is that my mother's bedroom door happened to have a lock on it, and my bedroom door didn't. I was home alone with my dog. Around midnight, I let him out into the yard one last time before bed. Routine, same as every night. I shut the door behind him and locked it while I got ready. A few minutes later, walking back downstairs, I heard scratching at the door. That's his signal. That's how he tells me he's done. Now, I have this habit. I don't know where it came from, but I can't open a door without knowing exactly who's on the other side of it. Doesn't matter what the situation is. I always check first. So I checked, and it wasn't my dog, it was a man, standing right up against the glass, head down, staring at the base of the door. And while I stood there frozen, watching him, I heard the scratching again, louder this time. It was his hand. He was dragging his fingers up and down the door. He was pretending to be my dog, so I'd open it without looking. I wanted to call the police, but I was 17, kinds of certain they wouldn't take me seriously. I tried to photograph him, and my camera couldn't pull anything out of the dark. Then he reached under his shirt and took out a knife and started working on the lock. That went on for about a minute. A man crouched at my door in the dark, picking the lock while I stood on the other side of it, not breathing. What stopped him was my dog. He came around the side of the house and started barking. He's a small dog, but he's got a deep bark, and it was dark and the man couldn't see what was coming. He ran. My dog came up to the door and I opened it, and I let him in. I filed a report. They never found him. I still think about the scratching because he'd watched me long enough to know I had a dog. He'd watched me long enough to know what my dog sounds like at the door, and he'd watched me long enough to know that I always let him back in. I've gone on outdoor runs for as long as I can remember. Same route every time. Neighborhood sidewalks for half a mile, then into the forest for another 2. There are 2 paths in that forest. One paved, one dirt. I take the dirt one on the way in because it's prettier, and the paved one coming back. The entrances are half hidden. I don't think many people even know they're there. It's rare for me to pass another person out there. Mostly it's just me. At least that's what I thought. It was around 6 on a summer evening. I was deep into the forest section when my phone made a noise. Not a text, an airdrop. And I want you to understand what that means. Airdrop only works if someone is physically close to you. Whoever sent that was standing within a few dozen feet of me. I panicked. I played it cool. Kept running for a few seconds, then made a show of slowing down like I was changing my music. What I was actually doing was opening the notification. It was a photo of me, mid-run. Same clothes I was wearing right then, taken seconds earlier. The caption said, "Come back." From the angle, whoever took it had been in the bushes. I put my phone away and I ran. I had no choice but to take the long way out, and the whole way I could hear it behind me. Rustling, footsteps, keeping up. I never turned around. Turning around cost you a step. I got to the edge of the forest and cut through backyards until I lost him. The last thing I heard was metal hitting metal. Whatever he was carrying, he was still carrying it. I never went back to that forest. I turned airdrop off permanently that night. I never saw his face. I don't know if he was young or old, big or small, anything. He knows exactly what I look like. He has a picture. I was 21, home alone at my parents' place a lot that summer. The house backed onto a pond with a town park on the far side. Big properties, neighbors spread out. I was in the back sunroom watching TV. My favorite room, all windows, breeze coming through. And I heard splashing. Could have been a goose. They fight in the water sometimes. But it kept going, so I turned the volume down and put my ear to the glass. Too heavy for a bird. That was a person. I stepped out onto the deck. Pitch dark out there. And now I could hear a man humming while he swam. Someone was in our part of the pond in the middle of the night humming to himself. I flicked the deck lights on. The splashing stopped instantly. The humming stopped. Whoever it was had seen me. I wasn't about to go confront a stranger in the dark, so I went back in, killed the lights, locked the door, and tried to go back to my show. Couldn't focus. Kept looking at the windows and seeing nothing but black. What I didn't think about was the TV. How much light it was throwing. How? Well, you could see me from outside. Then I heard something on the deck. I scrambled for the remote and shut the TV off. And the room went black and silent. And in that silence, once my ears adjusted, I could hear someone breathing. Right outside the window, I got flat on the couch. And after a moment, a voice came through the glass. Low, calm, "I see you." I didn't know whether to speak or stay hidden. What came out of me was, "Paul, is that you?" "Paul's a neighbor." I said it because I needed it to be him. He didn't answer. I just heard footsteps walking away on bare feet. I stayed flat on that couch for a long time before I moved. Doors were locked, front and side. I texted my family. My dad told me to put the lights on and go check, so I took a knife out onto the deck. There were wet footprints on the boards, half dried by then, barefoot. I followed them around to the side, and that's where I found him. The top of a head. Eyes and forehead. Nothing else. Coming up just over the edge of the deck from the ground below, watching me. He'd heard me coming. He'd gotten down there and waited, and he'd let me walk right up to him. We made eye contact. He turned and went. The police swept the property. Asked my parents if the family had enemies, problem neighbors, anyone with a reason. We didn't have an answer. I shut every window in that house and ran the air conditioning instead. He never came back. But he'd been in the water first. He'd swum across in the dark, gotten out on our side, and walked up to the house barefoot and dripping. And when I turned the TV off and hid, he already knew exactly where I was lying. I was renting a small house in the town where I'd landed my first real job. 1 floor, 2 bedrooms. My landlord, I'll call her Michelle, was lovely. I think she rented to me specifically because she didn't want a man in the place. A few weeks in, it started. A knock at the door on a work night. I went to the other side and asked who it was. Nobody answered. I didn't open it. Nobody should be knocking on my door at that hour. The next morning, heading out for work, there was a sticky note taped to my storm door. Hello, beautiful. I threw it away and told myself it was a one-time thing. That night, another knock, earlier this time while I was cooking dinner. I went and stood on the other side of the door and just listened. There was no peephole, no glass, no way to see out without opening it, and I wasn't going to do that. Second night in a row, that's when I understood what this was. I called my parents. My dad's a retired cop, and even he didn't have much. He said police can't do anything unless they catch someone in the act. He told me not to go out at night, don't answer the door, and if it kept up, he'd drive down and stay with me. Next morning, another note. I like to watch you. I photographed it and sent it to my family and to Michelle. I asked her straight out, "Do you have a stalker? Any man with a problem?" She sounded shocked. Said no, she's in a long-term relationship. I wasn't entirely convinced, so I left my own note on the door. I said, "If you're looking for Michelle, she doesn't live here, she only rents this place out. If you keep coming here, I'm reporting it to the police." That night, no knocks. I slept better than I had in days. I thought I'd solved it. The next morning, I opened the door to take my note down. It wasn't my note, it was a new one. "I'm not looking for Michelle, I'm looking for..." And then my name. "I like watching you," like I said in the last one. My dad packed a bag that morning and was at my house before I got home from work. We waited until late to call the police, deliberately because we figured whoever it was would already be out there watching, and we wanted him to see the cruiser. They took the report. My dad sat out on that front stoop for hours after I went to bed. He didn't come back that night. I moved out as soon as I could pack. Whoever it was never followed me to the new place, which told me something I've never been able to shake. It was never about the house. It was never about Michelle. He knew my name. And when I moved, he stopped, because he wasn't watching an address. He'd been watching a specific woman, and he'd found out where she slept. My brother-in-law and I were on a road trip across the country, driving a remote stretch of highway in New Mexico. One rest stop or gas station every 100 miles, each one standing alone with nothing else in sight. It was dark. We were doing 4-hour shifts, driving till 1 or 2 in the morning, then sleeping at whatever rest stop we found. It was past midnight, and they were rare enough that we agreed to take the next one we saw. An hour later, there it was. Standard middle-of-nowhere rest stop. One other car parked out front. Off to the side. We got out to use the bathroom, walked up to the double doors, each of us grabbing a handle. Locked. I looked around for a sign explaining it. The lights were on inside. It didn't look closed, so I cupped my hands against the glass and looked in properly. There was a splash of bright red across what I think was a closet, door near the back. It took a second for my brain to say the word. Blood. A long streak of it. And from the color alone, I could tell it was fresh. My brother-in-law was already banging on the door trying to get someone's attention. I stopped him. I pointed, and I watched the color go out of his face. We turned to leave, and on the way to the car, I took a proper look at that other vehicle. No plates. Dented all over. He pulled out fast, and as we drove off, I looked back. The rest stop door was opening. We were gone before I saw who was behind it. No signal for a couple of hours. When we finally got through, the police said they'd send someone to check the place. Days later, I called the sheriff's department to find out what they found. They told me they'd look up the records and call me back. Nobody ever called me back. I worked night security. It was 4 in the morning. I'd just come off a 10-hour shift and I was exhausted and starving. So I ordered food and put a movie on while I waited. I always set it to contactless delivery. Driver drops it, photographs it, leaves. No door, no conversation. That matters. The doorbell rang. I stayed put. I wait for the photo to come through on the app before I get up. That's the routine. A couple of minutes later, the photo appeared. My food sitting on the doorstep. I started to get up, and then someone started banging on my door. Hard, aggressive, and a man's voice yelling that my food was here. I was annoyed more than anything. I'd selected Contactless, so I opened the app and messaged the driver, "It's fine, you can go." The banging kept going. I waited for him to read it and leave. He didn't leave. The banging didn't stop. So finally I gave up, went to the door and opened it to tell him in person. The second it opened, a man lunged at me, grimy fast, coming straight through the doorway. What he didn't know was that I hadn't unlocked the screen door. He hit it. I slammed the main door and got the lock turned and called the police. He was gone before they got there. We opened the app to try to identify him. And that's when I saw the reply from my actual driver. He was confused. He said he'd left the second he took the photo of the food. He said he'd never banged on my door. He had no idea what I was talking about. I filed a report. That was the end of it. I still don't know who that man was or what he wanted or how long he'd been out there. But think about what he did. He waited for a real delivery to arrive. He watched the driver leave. And then he stood at my door and pretended to be him, because he knew I'd have to open it eventually. and the only thing between us was a screen door I'd forgotten to unlock. I smoke. Every night on my balcony, usually at hours no reasonable person is awake. Both of those facts matter. My neighborhood's secluded, houses spread well apart. But from my balcony I can see over one neighbor's fence into his yard. I'd never met the guy. Only ever saw a navy blue BMW in his driveway, so I assumed he lived alone. Then one night there was a black van parked in front of his house. I'd never seen it before. I noted it and thought nothing of it. The next night the van was back. By morning it was gone. I'll be honest with you, I'm not nosy, but I am obsessive. It's cost me most of my friendships. So for the rest of that week I made a game of it, standing out there at night watching the van, inventing reasons for it. I wasn't going to do anything about it. It wasn't my business. Then one night around 5 in the morning, my neighbor came outside. I watched him walk to the van carrying a long black bag. Looked like a golf bag, except for the way he was carrying it. Whatever was in there was heavy. He slid the door open and set it inside. Carefully, like it mattered. Then he got in and drove off. The next night I went out early and waited with my laptop. The van pulled in around 1 in the morning. It sat there, engine running, for a good 5 minutes. Then the driver's door opened and there he was. He went round to the side, slid it open, and pulled out the same bag. He was struggling with it this time, visibly, trying not to buckle under whatever was inside. He waddled a few steps, and then he and the bag disappeared into his house. The next morning I flipped a coin. That's genuinely how I decided. I waited on the balcony at 4 a.m. with a cigarette. The second I saw movement in his driveway, I was down the stairs, in my car, headlights off, waiting for him to hit the main road. I tailed him for 20 minutes. Then he turned onto a dirt path into the woods. I followed. The trees thinned out and the path had been a real road once. A few minutes in, I saw where he was going. An abandoned gas station. Tucked into a clearing in the middle of the forest, and parked right in front of it was the BMW. The one from his driveway. I got out of there, parked across from the dirt road, and waited an hour until the BMW pulled out. Then I drove back up the path. The front door of the gas station was locked. The side door was locked. The back door was locked. Every window I tried was sealed. Against every instinct I should have listened to, I picked up a rock and put it through the glass. The alarm went off instantly. An abandoned gas station in the middle of the woods. Wired with a working alarm system, I ran, called 911 as I drove, and gave them a vague description before hanging up. The next morning I went out to my balcony hoping it had all blown over. There were 8 police cars in my neighbor's driveway. I stood there and watched them walk him out of his house in handcuffs. One by one the cars pulled away, and I was left with a cigarette and my imagination. I've asked the police for details more than once. They won't tell me anything. I drove back out to that gas station a while later. The whole road's blocked off now. So I've got 2 facts and nothing to put between them. He was carrying something heavy out there at night, and he was carrying it back in the next morning. 10 people, 10 ordinary nights, a poster on a wall, a door that happened to be locked, a screen door nobody remembered to open. Not one of these people was saved by being brave. Every single one of them was saved by something small. A habit, a dog, a lock, a second of hesitation. That's the part that should keep you up. Not that it happened to them, but how thin the thing was that kept it from happening. I'm Bloody Tales. Check the door.